Thanks for inviting us in. It's 11 o'clock. We begin tonight with breaking news from northern Indiana. This is where 13 Investigates has learned another inmate has been badly burned in a fire at Indiana's oldest prison. We're talking about the Indiana State Prison in Michigan City. This is the same prison where 13 Investigates just uncovered decades of serious fires resulting in horrible injuries and gruesome deaths. Our senior investigative reporter Bob Siegel's in studio tonight. And Bob, this latest fire just happened a few hours ago, right?
It did. And oftentimes, Scott, when these fires happen, they are kept somewhat secret. But this time, the Indiana Department of Correction called me to tell me it has happened again. Here's what we know. Tuesday afternoon, another fire inside D Cell House at Indiana State Prison. IDOC tells me the fire was isolated to a single cell, but it was serious enough that an inmate was airlifted to a hospital in Indianapolis due to serious burns. We do not yet know the inmate's condition. We do know it's the second inmate at the prison to suffer horrible burns in just the past 3 weeks. Last month, Adam Schaefer was also severely burned in D Cell House. He's still in an Indianapolis hospital in critical condition after having both arms and a leg amputated to try to save his life. And these fires are just the latest in a long history at Indiana State Prison. 1 month ago, 13 Investigates exposed the problem in a documentary that shows just how huge and deadly some of these fires have been. And the investigation also shows the systemic problems within the 165-year-old prison that allow them to keep happening. Tonight, I just received a statement from IDOC. The agency's chief communications officer told me, "We are deeply troubled by the fires at the Indiana State Prison and the risk they pose to both our staff and the inmates. Regardless of how a fire starts, we are committed to keeping those in our custody safe. Our focus is identifying the root cause of these incidents so we can implement long-term solutions that improve safety for everyone inside the Indiana State Prison." It is notable that tonight's latest fire and injury come exactly 9 years to the day since Josh Devine burned to death inside his cell at the same prison. Josh was the focus of our recent investigative documentary. Following that 13 News investigation, the governor told me a few weeks ago it is now time for action.
You got to attend to it and fix it. So, yes, we will be looking to see what is behind this, do a full investigation of it. Once it happens on my watch, we're going to get to the bottom of it.
There is now even more pressure on Governor Braun and IDOC to follow through on that promise, with 2 more inmates now rushed to Indianapolis hospitals in 2 separate fires at the same prison just weeks apart. This is a complicated problem that the state really needs to figure out.
And Bob, the inmates that you've interviewed, they feared this very thing would happen.
They do. In fact, another inmate reached out to me tonight from inside the prison after this latest fire. He said this is, in his words, an epidemic of fires happening at the prison essentially on a daily basis, and many are simply not reported. He fears it's just a matter of time before this same thing happens again.
All right, Bob Siegel with 13 Investigates. And if you want to see what's behind these fires, go ahead and watch our full Burned Alive documentary. It's streaming on demand over on WTHR Plus and also available on YouTube. And now to breaking news out of Martinsville tonight at 11. That's where police say a teen was injured in a shooting. We just got an update from police in the last couple of hours. They tell us that teen was airlifted to a hospital here in Indianapolis, but they did not know the extent of his injuries. Police now are confirming he is stable. That shooting happened around 5:30 tonight at an apartment complex along Main Street. Investigators tell us they are now questioning several teens but have not made any arrests. They're working right now to figure out what happened before the gunfire. The Morgan County Major Crimes Task Force is now leading that case. Tonight at 11, the United States and Iran are now agreeing to a 2-week ceasefire on the condition that Iran reopens the Strait of Hormuz. Oil prices plunged after that announcement tonight. Chris Pallone is digging into what this means for the conflict and what comes next.
Less than 90 minutes before President Trump's 8 p.m. Eastern deadline, the president announced on social media that a deal had been struck. It pauses fighting between the U.S., Israel, and Iran for 2 weeks so that the three countries can negotiate a permanent end to the war. The president deciding he would not follow through on threats to attack Iran's infrastructure like power plants and bridges as long as Iran agrees to the complete, immediate, and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz. Pakistan has been mediating negotiations between the U.S. and Iran and presented a 10-point peace proposal from the Iranians to the U.S. President Trump called it a workable basis on which to negotiate. The ceasefire comes after a tense day, which started with President Trump posting on social media, "A whole civilization will die tonight," and "I don't want it to happen, but it probably will." The post drew outrage and condemnation around the world, from Democrats in Congress to the U.S.'s key European allies, and even from the Pope. Countries and embassies in the Middle East urged people to stay home as the deadline drew near, and Iranian officials urged people to surround potential targets as human shields. Both Iran and Israel say they have agreed to the ceasefire. Iran's foreign affairs minister posting on X, "For a period of 2 weeks, safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz will be possible." Stock futures surged on the news and the price of oil quickly dropped under $100 a barrel. Iran claims negotiations for a permanent end to the war begin Friday in Pakistan, but the White House has not confirmed that. Chris Pallone, NBC News.
Tonight, a group of Hoosiers gathered to push back against recent actions from the Trump administration. Our Logan Gay met with the protesters tonight in Indy. So, Logan, what was their message?
Well, Scott, protesters with the Good Trouble neighborhood group are speaking out against the conflict in Iran, and they say that pause isn't changing their mission. Every Tuesday, this group gathers at 54th and College. They say it's to exercise their First Amendment rights. And ceasefire or no ceasefire, they say the president's comments about Iran go too far.
We are in the middle of an illegal, unconstitutional war that is making our country, our soldiers, into war criminals.
These are children, these are people just like us who are just trying to, and they're protesters, they're trying to make their government better. And he said, "Oh, I'll help you, and then I'm going to bomb your bridges."
Organizer Debbie Asbury says she believes Congress needs to step in. She points to the city honking from drivers passing by as proof others agree.
A 25th Amendment, because when a president is deemed not fit for office or not able because of mental capacity or physical capacities to serve, Congress can remove that person.
The Pentagon says more than 300 service members have been wounded in the Iran conflict. The president has said the strikes were meant to eliminate the imminent threats to the U.S. But Asbury says the real concerns are closer to home.
Everyday people are paying high gas prices, high food prices. They don't know what's happening either. And many people are trying to just live their lives, but we really have to wake up and stand up to say this is not normal.
And even with the ceasefire, many here say they don't think this is over.
Today, we're really concerned with a war and with a foreign country, but we are also turning our own cities into war zones. And if we're not prepared to stand up and say no, the war is coming to us.
The Good Trouble neighborhood group planned to meet on April 13th at the local Radish. You can find more information on our website, WTHR.com.
All right, Logan, thanks so much. We're going to follow this story closely overnight. In the coming hours and days, you'll be able to see all the developments in this conflict and any reaction from Hoosiers and state lawmakers on WTHR.com and streaming on WTHR+. Angela?
Scott, it's clear and it's chilly. Again, temperatures for most of us already down into the 30s. We have 39 in Lafayette, 35 Kokomo, 32 Muncie. Still hanging on to some 40s, 44 Terre Haute, 43 Bloomington, and 42 in Indianapolis. Another freeze warning for areas northeast of Indianapolis where temperatures will be in the upper 20s and low 30s overnight and early tomorrow. But a warm up begins tomorrow, 53 at noon, and highs tomorrow near 70.
All right, Angela, thanks. Residents on the near west side of Indianapolis are calling tonight's community meeting with DPW unproductive. Alex Almanza is at that meeting tonight on the controversial 16th Street Bridge project, which is set to shut down a major thoroughfare for the next 2 years.
Do you have a plan or do you have a concept of a plan?
In the name of Jesus, get that plan.
DPW Director Todd Wilson grilled Tuesday night over his plans to fully close the 16th Street Bridge, a major artery connecting downtown to Speedway and Hawville.
Get the project done as fast as we can with the workforce that we have.
DPW says they can't keep the bridge partially open, citing high costs, safety, and broader traffic impacts. According to Public Works, the bridge was listed in fair condition as far back as 2012, but a report that suggested a full closure wasn't done until 2016.
Now we've had other inspections since then, and the bridge has just obviously continued to get worse since then. So as to why was there not a project prior to 2012, I can't answer that.
And this is more than a Band-Aid job. DPW says the damage is already done. For example, look at this concrete pillar. It's basically begun detaching from the bridge. And if you look over here at this arch, pieces of concrete have begun shedding, exposing rebar, which DPW says is like a cancer. Once it begins, you can't really reverse it. So now the question becomes, how do you preserve this historical bridge, but also open it in a timely manner? Aaron Williams is part of the Keep the Bridge Open coalition. He says State Senator Greg Taylor's comments at the meeting about delaying the project offered a glimmer of hope.
When you have to use that almost as a threat to get the city to take action, that's actually sad but encouraging for us.
Robbie Smith is the co-owner of Long's Bakery, right next to the bridge. A closure means customers would have to use the 10th or 30th Street Bridge to get their hands on a warm pastry.
We just need the city to realize how big of an impact it has on businesses and the people around the community. I think it's not just about us, it is about the community. We've been here for 71 years.
For Long's Bakery and so many others, the long way may be the only way. In Indianapolis, Alex Almanza, 13 News.
Tonight we're taking a closer look at work on the east side of Indy to boost affordable housing options. Pastor Ken Sullivan at New Direction Church and Pastor Joy Thornton at St. Mark Baptist Church are teaming up tonight for this project. So their congregations are working together to transform 5 acres of land near 38th and Arlington into homes for low-income families.
The property here has kind of been unkept and neglected for a little bit of time, and the house behind us is one of the homes that will be demoed as we build and bring in new fresh development. We want to raise the property value here in our community, and we want people to really take ownership of their community.
Pastor Sullivan told us he hopes the first units will be built by next summer. The Pacers hosted the Minnesota Timberwolves tonight. I've got all the highlights from Gainbridge Fieldhouse coming up.
It's going to be a warmer Wednesday, and I'll look ahead to our next rain chance in your forecast.
Plus, disturbing allegations tonight linked to the death of a southern Indiana toddler.
This is a highly emotional case. It's a case that's beyond what we see often here in our community.
Tonight, we're breaking down the claims, the charges, and what just happened in court.